So
it's cooling off up here. So
I bet.
yeah. Now, when would you say you got in? When was the last time you really were hands-on in minor hockey, actively hands-on? If you
In
stopped,
minor hockey, youth
well,
hockey.
trying to say, when I worked with the national team, I was actively hands-on. I worked with a company in a mentorship role.
Yeah.
And so up to COVID, I was doing stuff for hockey, being paid. And now I'm just enjoying this because we're all retired. We have a little more time than others, and you still got a wealth management business. So I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, I coached a girls JV team last year, and they were average ages 15. Year before, I had the U15 team, average age 14.
Yeah.
And let's see, and then I was coaching high school for about 14 years, and I've done Bantams. I'll probably end up back doing, if I don't go to this other sort of, it's a pretty high-powered program here in town. They called me yesterday. It's not a head job, which is fine. The politics are brutal, and if I don't go there, I'll probably just, there's no shortage of opportunities to coach. In fact, I got a call yesterday from the athletic director at the Aspen High School, Aspen, Colorado. How do I end up there? They're going to have to rent me a condo and a car to go there for 3 months. But anyways, to answer your question, I've always, if it isn't as a team coach, been doing clinics and on ice stuff for forever.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm really curious because most of us we've lost some of the younger regulars. I'm not sure when Sammi Jo's going to get on, and Kim McCullough in particular. She's now mentoring a female association, and I'm just sort of sitting here scratching my head, and I'm actually thankful because, Michael, I'm looking forward to the mission statement exercise and where you might be able to take it. And you're in the unique position of being active, and I like your title, the hockey solutions architect, is it?
Sounds good.
It does, but
I should charge more for that though, but I don't know. Yeah, it's well, I try to sum it up, right? Because it got too convoluted. People used to ask me after I stopped coaching, or for a living, they would be like, "Well, what do you do actually?" Like, "Oh, I work in hockey." And well, what? In what part of hockey? I said, "What part don't I work in hockey?" So it gets. I think I get a little knock too every once in a while that, a lot of times I call colleagues and other hockey people, and they always think I'm trying to sell them something. But again, it's more just trying to reach out to, very similar to what this group does, just help coaches navigate the sport, make it better, and, get back to the thing you love doing, which is actually being on the ice with the kids and coaching. And I try, like tonight, I have a meeting with the youth hockey organization down in Westchester County, New York, 25 coaches. And it's just all about how to make their experience better so that they can give a better experience for their kids. And it's just a lot of the stuff that USA Hockey, Hockey Canada, the federations just don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do. So I figured Hockey Solutions Architect was an easy title because it somewhat sums up pretty much everything I do. But we're looking forward to that. We're definitely looking forward to the mission statement workshop. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
Okay. Hi, Sammi. Welcome home. Have you recovered from jet lag?
I did all my stuff, Wally, from the Toronto TSN studios, so I didn't go anywhere, but it was early mornings.
Oh, I thought you were, that's where the broadcasting was from?
So Cheryl and Kenzie were doing the play-by-play in color from there,
Yeah.
from Denmark. But Tessa, myself, and Jana were in the TSN studio in Toronto.
Oh, that I could never tell.
Well, that's good.
It was really good.
The magic of TV.
Excellent. I watched a lot of it. And, you know, something I'm going to mention, Sammy, is that there's the original Sharks group was literally all guys, and it was literally all hockey. And eventually it morphed into the emotional intelligence side of coaching, the art of coaching, not the X's and O's. And I think, at least on the guys' side, and possibly in the past on the ladies' side, the focus was everybody was looking for drills. Everybody was looking for a way to come up with that magic way to win with X's and O's. And I recently have come to understand that it doesn't matter what you do in X's and O's. There are people that have been on that are just into the X's and O's, and they've got all kinds of outstanding ideas and present concepts a little bit differently. They may be the same concepts, but it's the X's and O's that attracts people because it gets results, so they think. And I think of the other. I think the furthest thing from getting results is the X's and O's of coaching. It's how you communicate and get things across. So it just completely intrigues me, and I'm sure glad you're on. We have a guest user, and I wonder if he or she would introduce herself so we know who it is and we can include them in the conversation.
Well, I don't know. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
This is Pete Whitney. I was on last week.
Oh, Pete, I need to see your face again. That's good. Good
Yeah.
to see you. Okay.
Right now, my screen is frozen, so I don't know what you can see, but I just see me just staring at myself. It's kind of weird.
We can see you, Pete. I can see you moving around.
All right.
All right. Pete, tremendous week last week. I've edited so many tidbits, like 4 to 5 minute segments from what you said, and Michael was bang on when saying, describing you as a person that would be a good fit for the Sharks because you've been there, done that, but you articulate the aspects of coaching that can make the game so much better. And the thing that bothers me is the audience we're talking to is an audience that needs it and doesn't really have the technical expertise, but they understand difficulties of not having the leadership skills to cohesively create a culture that's going to create success. And that's true of any sports organization at any level. We talked about the New Zealand All Blacks, and we've referred to some of the books that have been written about them and the way they've created a culture. And I really think it's no different than what we need to do in minor hockey. It's the same. There's no difference between the business of hockey and minor hockey and leadership in business. It's all how you treat people, how you communicate people, and get them to produce. So, Sammy, I'm going to get you to talk a bit about your thoughts on the Worlds. I spent 2 hours on the phone with Carla McLeod, and for the listeners, Carla is a former national team player, outstanding defense player who coached the Czech women's team, taking over from Thomas Pacina, and they won a bronze medal. But we had a tremendous talk last night about the nuances of what she went through as a coach. you see the surface, you see the celebration, you see the results. But what went on behind the scenes, how she was able to stick handle her way through the distractions was amazing. And it may be time for another topic, but I enjoyed the conversation. Sammi, your take on the Worlds as a podcaster and then a former player.
Well, I would love to get Carla on if you can. That would be really interesting. Having been privy to Thomas's presentation to this group and what he went through when he first started with the Czech team, and Carla coming in and continuing it. I talked on air about how this was a different journey for her than the Japanese team, because the Japanese team, she really was starting without much support, without really the hockey knowledge within that team. But this time she took over from Thomas Pacina. So I'm curious with that base, how she was able to build and stuff. So that'd be great to get her on if you could, Wally. That'd be awesome.
She wants to, Tom Molloy, she's extended an invitation to the people in Calgary, Tim Bothwell, yourself, and I mentioned a few others, to meet in the original Sharks Finding Coffee House. Cadence,
That would be nice
Bonelli.
to do that again.
And she'd like to do it on a Monday morning, Thomas. So check your calendar for this Monday. She's excited about it because we would definitely continue that conversation. I'm not sure whether or not it can get online and whether the Skype program will work from there, but it's I'm looking.
You guys could just report back. You guys can actually enjoy being in person again.
Yeah, that's the joy of it. So, Sammi, your take on the Worlds? It was for the Canadians, it was nice that we were successful, and we hope our egos don't get too bloated. That we appreciate what we've accomplished, but understand what it takes to maintain that. But what's your thoughts, Sammi, on the Worlds?
Well, I think what was really intriguing was the linear journey that was similar to what Howie Draper went through, right? So as we were always trying to find the story. So the storyline through the teams, and the fact that TSN showed 20 games on TV was pretty incredible. And all of the games are archived on video on demand on TSN. So, which is amazing. That's never been done before. So that was really great to be a part of. But the fact that we could see the teams in their journeys through the round robin has never really happened before. So we got to tell these amazing stories about not just the research we had done prior, but what was actually going on throughout the tournament, and players' ability to improve or adapt to the situations or things like that we had never really been able to tell before. So that was great. And I would have said throughout the tournament that for sure the US, they looked so dominant. It was similar to the U18 championship. And, they looked like they were really gelling. Their lines were really clicking. They were having a great time. They seemed really well coached. They seemed to really have a lot of respect for John Roboleski, and he, having coached superstar players before at the Michigan Training Center, knew what it took at that level. And he seemed to be getting the best from his players. So we were all very impressed with him. We did several features on him. And the players, couldn't say enough about him as a coach. On the Canadian side, it took a while for the girls to click. They they were struggling, and it wasn't an easy journey by any means. They were missing Natalie Spooner and Melody Diaou and Rebecca Johnson, amongst others, and their bestie, Claire Thompson, from the last Olympics. So them out of the lineup really kind of created this kind of chaos, getting the new players in and feeling their way. And I would have said from the outside that Troy Ryan was scrambling and wasn't, was trying to find lines every single game that Canadians showed up with different lines and different line pairings and matching. And anyways, it just nothing really, they were still winning, but they weren't putting up the numbers they had before. And the Olympics, according to most sources, were really an anomaly. And it's hard to not judge this team against the Olympic team because the Canadian team at the Olympics were so dominant and the Americans were not. And so it was, numbers that these players had never put up before, scoring records that they had never produced before. Well, now we were trying to match them against that. And was their performance up to par? And, rather than taking the whole body of their work over the last 10 years, it was hard to not compare them. So regardless, as the tournament progressed, it became a really fascinating storyline. And were the Canadians going to be able to get it all together and put it together and even compete in the final game? We thought it might be one-sided. And similar to the U18 championships, and Howie Draper, who came on and spoke to the Sharks group about his journey, just sticking to the process and it being about development of people as much as the players and the staff, and finding the right fit and continuing to have that buy-in. I felt like internally the Canadians still had that, and I think in the media we just didn't think they were going to get it together in time, but they did, and they in the end, Troy Ryan and his coaching staff prevailed, and it sounded like they had a lot of buy-in from the entire organization. But it also, in the end, really came down to goaltending. I will always say that, let's be honest, but this game really did. And I think that what it showed was that systems and X's and O's and all of that can matter for sure. But like Wally said at the beginning, that buy-in and that sense of belief in self is really powerful. And I think both teams had that. I think that, no discredit to the Americans, I think they had that as well. And then that final game, to me, now you have both really well-coached teams. And what does it come down to? It came down to goaltending in the end. The Americans had much better chances than the Canadians. And Renee Desbiens came up huge. And that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbled in the final game. And for sure, another day, another time, even another place, and that game could have gone the other way. But the American-Canadian women's rivalry never fails to disappoint. No matter how lopsided you think it will be going into it, it is always close in the end. And so that was really special to witness from a storytelling perspective versus being in it and being around it and, living it. So, it was an interesting journey, Wally, and it was really fun to be a part of. And I tried to really push myself to not just talk about goaltending or talk about how to score on goalies, because that's really natural and easy for me. And at one point took a stab at the American power play, their PP1 versus PP2. Another time took a stab at defense rushing and jumping into the play. So I tried to sort of push myself into areas that are not necessarily my natural forte, but it doesn't come as naturally or easily, but it's a way to improve myself. And in the end, it was a really special experience.
Sammy, before I go to Tom, who has a question, most of the viewers that are on, we've had experience working in women's hockey. In fact, my involvement with guys hockey has only been in a mentorship point of view more the last 20 years than it has active coaching involvement. So I'm curious, Phil, Tim, I believe Greg's joined us. How do you see the connection of female hockey and male hockey in terms of learning from both of those sports? Hal? And then Tom.
Is that me? Yeah. Were you asking me, Wally?
Yeah, I'm looking at Tim and Greg
I'm sorry.
and Phil, who's been on, and I'm just curious. Are they separate entities, one of itself going their own ways and directions, and when both have so much to offer and gain from one another? They get the guys' program in Minnesota more important than the girls' program and getting more attention, and you're just sort of picking up the crumbs.
Well, I think, I remember when we talked to Daryl, and he was talking about girls hockey, women's hockey, and it's still primarily men coaching girls hockey, and it's a different game. It's still hockey, but it's, if we think about the differences between how guys play hockey and how girls play hockey and what's important to them, there's a different hierarchy of value in terms of what the players want to get out of the game. Now, I know that at the elite levels, they all want to, winning is the prime directive. But, that's only 20 kids and 20 players in Canada and 20 players in the United States out of thousands and thousands. So having coached girls the last couple of years, as a coach, it's fun because the players have fun. They have fun every day. The boys don't have fun every day, and but I think they process the game differently, and they've learned to play the game a little bit differently. Growing, it doesn't fit their. I think that they've been taught how to play the way the boys are taught how to play, and I don't think it fits the girls as much. And the rules allow the girls to do things and be in spaces where the boys will get clobbered. And but getting the girls into those spaces is not easy. And they like to play on the wall. They like most kids, they don't actually have great situational awareness of where they are and relative to the threats. And I distribute that to because they're young and they haven't had a ton of experience. And then I think in the girls hockey, if you get a couple really good ones, they dominate, and the rest of the kids are just along for the ride. And as a coach, you have to work pretty hard to get everybody else involved. I was with this program that the girls team, high school team, went to the state tournament last year, and they didn't do very well because you can't win a 3-game tournament with only 9 kids and 12 kids sitting on the bench watching. But they had a lot of talent on that team, and so it's been fun to work around some kids. I mean, several of those girls have played Division I hockey, and just trying to inspire 2 or 3 of them, the 2 or 3 better ones, that they should set their sights higher. As I said, I have a friend in Canada that would like to be on the broadcast and talk about them at the World Championships or at the Olympics. And but they don't think about things like that. They just want to make high school. I just hope to play college hockey. I go, well, So you circle back to at the beginning of our conversation today, Wally, and you're right. It's not X's and O's. It's the experience allowing these kids to develop and be psychologically safe while they're playing hockey, and so that they can learn by playing and without fear of criticism, failure, and that's tough in youth sports today, and any sports today, because there's video of every game, every moment, everything, everywhere, and there's always people looking at it. So, anyways, I would like to see girls hockey. I'd like to see that the coaching ranks improve and start working with the girls to their strengths and not worry about their weaknesses in the game. And we do have to teach them some things. We have to get them into spaces where they can score goals, because not many of them can score goals from the blue line. Not many guys can either, actually. But they need
Point
to play a
shots
little
suck.
different. Huh?
Point shots suck. We all can agree on that.
Yeah.
Google it. It's out there. There's many reasons why they're terrible, so I couldn't agree more.
And so there's a lot of work to do.
Talk about point shots. I refer to a thesis done by Alan Andrews' son in Velomaki, and this is got 15 years ago. You got to shoot smart from the point. You can't score goals from the point. The intention isn't to try to score; it's to facilitate a chance to score, and that's the way the game is played today. There's different tactics out there, and I'm glad Greg chimed in, because I wanted to, at some point, to bring him into the discussion, because he's an X and O guy on the guy's side is the focus. Now, before we leave the female, and I don't want to leave the female side of the game, Tom, your question for Sammi, if you wouldn't mind. I'm sorry, Hal, but I just want to make sure Tom gets it in. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I watched those games. I think, Sammi, you did a terrific job. Your whole panel did a terrific job of, commenting on what was happening in the games. And, and you all commented how the Canadian team was always on the boards. And that's a real, in Finland, almost every drill you have to get between the dots. They call it the big ice. So you want to play the game in the big ice, because the defender, of course, wants you outside the dots. It's a lot easier to defend. And I think that's why a lot of the scoring problems are with female hockey. But, I just think I just posted a drill the Canadian under-20 team did. And it's a drill I use, but I call it the Carolina 2-0, 3-0. But the Canadian coach changed it that they go to the middle all the time. So they're always feeding the player in the middle, and then he dishes left or right, and they can do all the different things there. And, that's something I think that basically all hockey players should try to do, because it's so easy to defend you if you just stay on the boards. But, overall, you guys, you did a terrific job. But the Canadian team also, I think after the second period, the Americans had like about 7 or 8 shots. And I know I think the game before they got 70 against Switzerland or somebody like that. So I thought the defending was amazing by the Canadians. And that goalie, what's her name? How do you say her name?
Anne Renee Desbiens.
Desbiens?
Yeah.
She was at the end. I mean, she made those last 5 minutes. At one time, I think she made 3 or 4 saves in a row.
Yeah, and the shots were only 20-19, so there wasn't many all game, right? So to be able to do that in the final dying minutes when you really haven't been tested that much. But you're right, the third period she was tested more, so she was ready.
Yeah, but they played so well that comparative to the rest of the tournament, it was amazing how well they played. But I just wanted to comment that you did a terrific job.
Well, thanks, Tom. And thanks for all the prep work leading up to it, too. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Listen, Tom, your point on getting in the middle of the ice, I'm going to try to connect Greg to this conversation, because I agree with you. I had conversations with Carla before going there and what she was going to do with the Czech women. And she basically the girls knew how to play and possess the puck. But when she studied video, everything they did was on the outside. They never penetrated and got inside the dots. And Carla and I was looking for the video she sent me that I would, if I had it, I would post it now. She edited clips, I think 5 clips of where they had the puck and didn't take ice inside the dots and never got a scoring chance.
Well, it's like Daryl Belfry, he in his videos there 2 summers ago, he said you can't just make possession passes, that aren't going to result in anything. You have to penetrate and get that puck into the scoring area. And, that's a change that a lot of teams have to make in players.
Yeah. Well, I had the conversation with Daryl after the first game they played, and he was disappointed in the way they played relative to what he and Thomas were working on. And the next level that he feels he was going to do with the team was work on getting into the scoring area with the puck by passing to space, not passing to players, static, standing, perfect targets, but moving and creating space and getting there. And my point was, Carla, she had video of them where that's all she did. She didn't look at the playbook and what they were doing in the possession game. She just wanted to get them to buy in, have smiles on their faces, which they did. It was amazing. They created an arm up and down thing, a celebration after goals, and it was morphed. The players came up with stuff like that. So her strength is the technical area, but she knows how much and what to work on. And I think that's the beauty of what she did, because she got them to get inside the dots and score in the dirty areas. And she beat Finland in an exhibition game in Finland prior to the tournament. They'd never beaten Finland before. And then she beat them in the final 8s. And so her methodology of coaching, it was the right stuff, the right amount, the right time, and the right way for that team. When you take over a team, I mean, it's you and your team, and you have got to take a leadership role. So I'm looking forward for her getting on. But my question to Greg is, Greg, when I look at your wonderful shares, everything you're saying is absolutely brilliant. Some of it, the new part to me, is getting inside the dots. And I'm curious, Greg, about what you're doing and that's different that we could do better in the game on the female and the male side. And I'm talking generally speaking, not the elite of the elite, but I'm just talking the pretty competitive level of minor hockey play, and then even to the national team level. We're talking about the female team. Craig, can you comment? I just slipped off and missed out on it. Well, I'll speak to my thoughts is that the idea of getting to the middle of the ice is something that made a difference for her. That's X's and O's. And she was able to do that. And talking to Carla last night, she feels that the credit for the team's achievement is still going to the work done. Now, the work done by Thomas and Daryl with the team obviously has paid off. But she has an innate sense of what to do and when to do it with a group of athletes. And it would have been you can't come in as a head coach and copycat what they were doing and be effective. You got to go with your knowledge, your feel with that team. And she had a tremendous sense of it. And I'm really looking forward to her. Hoping, Sammi, she gets to stay on, because that's not a slam dunk. It was sort of like, for the public, based on how they played the Olympics, it was an expectation. They accomplished it.
Yeah, I mean, she was so glorified in that dressing room afterwards. I can't imagine them not seeing the work that she did and how much the players seemed to really gravitate towards her.
She definitely won the players, but outside of the players, you have a staff that a member may not be on board. And you also have an association, just like in minor hockey, administrating the team with their ideas of what's right and what's wrong and what could be. And who knows what the decision makers are going to decide. It's no different in minor hockey. Being able to judge what they're doing and understanding their path and plan, but appreciating how difficult it is to step into that situation, to fill the shoes of Thomas, accomplish what he did, which is brilliant. Well, she did that. She took it to another level, but she did it a different way. She did it her way, and I think part of the right way is not getting carried away with a variety of things that might not be effective. They may be useful, they may be purposeful, but they might not be effective. And I relate to Jordan Fenton. He watched some of Daryl's things, and he actually played with them, and he found some of them tremendously effective. And it all related to making plays and thinking the game and making better decisions. But the bottom line was, Hal, they weren't afraid to make mistakes. They weren't being told what to do, distracted from thinking for themselves and making decisions for themselves. So I told Carla last night, there was I don't know if it was a TV timeout or a timeout. There was a point where a coach normally would have had the board out and been intervening. The three players, Carla didn't come down to the players that were on the ice, but the 5 players on the ice, the 3 forwards in particular, the conversation they were having and the head nodding and the finger and the sense of direction that they were giving to one another. I talked to Carla about this last night. They were saying what they knew they had to do. And she really used the inquiry method of coaching. She let them figure things out. It wasn't that she didn't know what to say or do, but by telling them what you want them to do, you empower them more by them thinking about what to do. And that's what she did with that group. So hopefully we can get her on sometime. And I think, Tom, after a coffee with her, with a couple of us, and getting down the nitty gritty of it, we can convince her to come on. And we may have to change the day because of her practice times, but it would be worth it. So, Phil, I'm going to ask you a question. We're talking female hockey here. Does this make sense? Does it relate to your experiences?
Who were you asking, Wally?
Well, I'm curious, like the general audience, I always have the feeling that I know there are guys that have been on with us that aren't on anymore because we talk about girls hockey, and I'm saying that it's hockey. The same thing applies on the guys' side, in fact, more so. The art of coaching.
Yeah, I just, as a youth coach, I've just really enjoyed watching all of the women's games because that game and how they play is more, to me, is more relatable to the youth that I work with.
Okay, what would the NHL have to learn from that, the way that's played, that team plays? Female hockey.
I guess I'm not sure, but I'm sure Sammi Jo or Hal would have an idea. And for me in particular, the way the women's game is played with the, you know, the no body checking, and how aggressive they are at stick on puck, angling. It's just it's a great example to me. It's a great example of how youth players, especially I'm at the, you know, under 14 level, so we're not body checking yet. It's I just anyway, for me, I just really enjoy watching the women's game for that reason.
Well, I agree with you, Tim, because what you said is what the NHL learned from the women's game. When I do checking clinics in Canada, finishing a check is a mistake. You're giving up space and time. Stick on puck, you're staying in the play. Using the word hitting, a mindset of aggression and force that's to intimidate, not to possess. And in the NHL game, I'm not sure how many years now, but I watched a presentation by Ray Bennett. He assisted Colorado last year. He was working with St. Louis. It's the St. Louis Blue highlights of forecheck with stick on puck. Not one finished check at the NHL level. So to me, the female game and the absence of hitting, there is body checking. They're figuring it out. And Sammi, you witnessed it. I think Sweden had trouble. They took a lot of penalties because they play now in a league with body checking. And who knows where that's going to go.
They don't have that yet though, Wally. So this will be the first, starting in September. It'll be a real interesting in the Swedish Elite League. Body checking is implemented, but it is on the boards. It's not open ice.
Yeah.
So I wonder if those players will fare better in their leagues now, because you're right, they had a tough time with it, but they haven't played body checking yet.
Okay.
So it's not an excuse yet.
My point is, and Tim and Phil, the NHL game is sort of the game, and it is. What they're doing, the hockey IQ that they're showing, because they've taken the brutal factor out of the game in my day that existed. Just aggression would win, the toughest team would win, and old school hockey was north-south hockey, linear hockey, and you just had to be amazingly tough. And in a sport that allows fighting at the NHL level, I think that they're having to learn from the way the females play. And I see the females have to learn how to play up with the puck and execute much better with the puck offensively. And I think that's happening before our eyes, particularly with the Canadian team, because they're just now being allowed to play without fear of making a mistake. And I think that's really unique. Tom, you're an NHL hockey fan. I've gone with you to games, sat in your seats. How do you see the connection and the learning from both sports, from one to the other? Speaker, Tom. Tom, your mic.
I think the World Championship, the women's there, was just as rough as any NHL game I see now. I disagree that there's not body checking in women's hockey. There's body checking, there's not hitting. So it's a difference. Like when I played, you take the body, create a loose puck, and the second player would pick up the loose puck. So you can't just hit. Now you have to, if you have your stick on the puck, they're riding players off, skating through the hands. If you watch Howie's stuff that he did with the women's team, they got the free hand on the player's hips, the stick wrapped around, and they're riding the player right into the boards. And that's basically what I see in the NHL now. You don't see people going around. Well, the odd guy does it, like Lucic does it on Calgary and that, just to intimidate and all this kind of stuff. But very few guys go around and hit, just for the sake of hitting. And I really think that Women's World Championship was, they were playing pretty tough out there.
Tim,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what Tom's saying, and I agree. The terminology that I was using is kind of the USA Hockey terminology. You have body contact at the younger levels through Pee Wee, and then they would call it body checking from 14 and above. However, I still think they call it that, but the rules have changed, which I think you guys know. You even at the 14 at the Bantam level and above, USA Hockey, you still have to play the puck. You can make contact, but if your stick is off the ice or if you have not made an attempt to play the puck, that'll be called a penalty now at the higher levels in USA Hockey. So in that regard, it's probably not that much different from what you're describing, Tom.
you say higher levels. What do you mean, Tim?
Bantam and midget. So 14U and above.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the point I'm making is, I love both games, but I've been involved in the female game since 2002, still watching and enjoying the male game and appreciating where the male game is going. They have taken hitting out of the game and are trying to find that line of body checking for possession. And that comes from the female game. The female game is, to me, more pure hockey. And the hockey IQ side of it really enters into the picture. And getting players to think for themselves and feel free and make better decisions, that's where the game is going. That's what coaches have to learn to do. And coach less, question more, empower them to be themselves when they play. And Carla had mentioned to me her goal. She focused only on the good things the players could do, and she's sending me cards of the things they listed that they felt they were best at, and that's all she focused on. And so they constantly were playing their game. And she had one of her players, she said, it was a player that surprised her. Now, I don't know if you knew this, Sammy, but she had 4 players that would be in the top 6 of the team that weren't at the competition. Just like Team Canada, she was missing some elite players.
Where were those players?
Just like Team Canada, they took time off. And 3 of them are likely going to be back. But she's aware of what's coming up, who wasn't there, and she knew what she had to work with. And one of the players, she said, came to her after, and Carla had mentioned to her on the bench, I don't know her first name, but she said, you're amazing. And she said, I've never played this well before because you're letting me play. And people think it's not coaching. even when she worked with the national team camps, the thought of the people, the powers was that, well, she's not coaching, not running a deliberate drill and that looks excellent. And I think that we don't realize that there's a side of coaching that on the male side and the female side we can get better at. And I think NHL coaches are much better at telling less and asking more. And I think you got to ask the players. That's where Daryl comes in. The players are the teacher. He coaches them by questioning. What are you going to tell somebody who's played the game as long as they have? They're on the benches making decisions. So that's just my thought on it. Jordan, I don't know if you're in the office or now, but if you are, have you got any thoughts on the conversation? I think Mike's preparing for we have 11 o'clock planned to discuss the mission statement exercise. So, what I guess the main point is that the gap in hockey is trying to get people to do the right things at any level and do them the right way. And I don't care if it's guys hockey or girls hockey. It's the same. I don't care if it's the NHL or minor hockey. Trust and respect are a part of coaching. And how do you gain that? Michael, you got your hand up? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm sorry, I'm preoccupied. But I think it's I think the struggle we have at the youth hockey level, maybe not so much at like major, junior, and pro and prep school, is your ability to listen to players and understand their needs on a granular level is so much harder because you really aren't with them. Like you have to be so creative in finding ways to communicate and connect with players because you have the barriers of, obviously in the pros, you have the barriers, I guess, of agents and, advisors and things like that. But at the youth level, you don't get that undivided attention. You don't get the opportunity just to listen to the player and then help them become the best player within your team, because you just don't have that. You just don't have that time. Most 90% of youth hockey coaches probably see their kids, and again, maybe this is their own fault, but only see their kids maybe a half hour before practice and a couple of minutes after practice, and they don't know how to reach out, connect, build these relationships, and draw that confidence out of players, only because you just don't have the time. And certainly I think for most coaches, they don't have the education. They don't have the ability to even understand, what this concept means. So I think that's, and you've talked about this a number of times, even privately with me, is, that's really where we have to spend more time on that stuff than like, okay, what kind of power play are you running with the kids? And I think that's where that's where our biggest faults are. And I watched a baseball practice last night. I was waiting for one of my guys, and we're at the park, and I'm watching baseball practice, and it's the same thing. It's like one coach hitting to 9 kids in the infield, and kids, hitting each other and fooling around and not paying attention, almost getting hit by line drives because it's just uninspiring and they're not teaching, and it's just. But that guy's a baseball guy, and that's how baseball players learn. You just hit ground balls to them for 40 minutes. And we wonder why kids are running from our sport and, running from the game. So I just wanted to make the comment only because I love, like, what Daryl does and Greg and all the stuff he puts out. This is all great. When you have the time and the ability to connect with your players, that makes a huge difference than if you're speaking to a mom and dad or that are volunteering their 3 hours a week to coach their kids' hockey team.
Tim,
Yeah, Mike, I think with the advent of some of the social tools, though, a youth coach can maintain some additional contact, whether it's through Team Snap or Power Player or just some. I guess you have to be at the younger levels a little careful with direct text messaging. I'll text message a parent, and knowing that the parent can hand the phone over to their player. I've just renewed my safe sport training, so I have some of that in the back of my mind. But I do think I do think there are some tools that are available to help build that relationship. So I'd had an exchange with it was a very friendly exchange with a well, it was at a game this weekend, and the team, our shifts were too long, and the team we were playing they were changing on the fly, which is a very kind of unusual in our league. If you see that happening, you're playing against a well coached team. And I made a comment I was on the bench, and I have one of my very easy to engage players next to me. You can have he's 12, but he's very mature, very nice kid. Anyway, I made the comment. I said, "Man, those guys they're." I said something about they really change well. And I'd already had the conversation with him about his shift lengths. I asked him. I said, "So who's your favorite player?" He said, "Steven Stamkos." I said, "Oh, how long do you think his average shift length is?" And he looked at me. I said, just take a guess. He goes, "A minute." I said, "Okay, we'll make a note of that." I said, "How long do you think your shifts have been today?" And he smiled and he said, "A minute." I said, "Okay, we'll make a note of that." So my exchange with the parent was I had the shift times for both Steven Stamkos and this young player. So that conversation had taken place on the bench while he was waiting to go out, before I made the comment about this other team, really changes well. And the player looks up at me and with a bit of a smile and says, "So you're saying we don't?" So anyway, my point is that was an opportunity to have a little further dialogue. So last night, when you have that first 5 minutes where you're just doing the skate around, I skated up to him and I told him, I said, "Hey, I got a new nickname for you." And he looked at me. I said, "I'm going to now call you Minute." But anyway, my point is there's some things with technology that we can do within reason, and knowing that kids have a very short attention span, so you can't send them 5 minute clips of video. But anyway, my point is I think we can interact with our players to make in a way that will make the time we do have with them on the ice more valuable. Just a thought.
Tim, I don't know if you listened to Gardner McDougall or not, but
Yeah.
one of the biggest issues that he was able to change was shift length. They were over a minute long, and he wanted them closer to 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And they were able to do that. He wanted them to play a faster game. So shift lengths to me are a cardinal. So you're talking about them, and I want to be polite here, but I don't pussyfoot about them. And whether it's parents and players, I think at certain ages, you can have a minute and a half, 2 minute shifts. But certain levels of competition, if you want to be a competitive player and an elite level player, you have to have shorter shifts, sorry. And
Speaking
to me, this completely disrupts the chemistry of the team because the best players stay out too long. And coaches allow that. The best players stay out too long and take bad penalties. Coaches allow that.
speaking from my experience as a coach and bench management, that's been the most difficult thing for me to deal with as a coach. And if all you can do is get your kids to change on a whistle, you have no prayer of having short shift lengths. So you can't just say in the pregame speech, all right, boys, we want to concentrate on having some short shift lengths tonight. Because if you look at practices, the coaches will run a drill like a do the 3-on-0 breakout or 2-on-0 entry drill, and they'll let that group of kids play for 2-3 minutes, and then they'll change up and put the next group in. So if a kid's used to playing 2 or 3 minutes at practice, and you tell him in the pregame speech we're going to keep our shift short, you'll be lucky if the shift is now 1:30. So that's not good enough. Everybody says you have to practice like you want to play, and that's the truth. But my observation is that we don't generally practice at the youth level like we should play. So we have a team that has long shift lengths. If we concentrate, if we made it a priority, which it should be now, made it a priority, it's something that we need to ingrain in every practice going forward, and reinforce it in every game. Our team doesn't know how to change on the fly. When I looked up Stamkos' shift lengths for this player, I forget. I think he played. The stats said he played 21 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and 60% of his average shift length was 41 seconds, and 60% of his shift changes were done on the fly. Anyway, my point is we have to ingrain it in everything we do. So if you're running a small area game in practice or a 2-on-0 entry, whatever it is, if you want the kids to learn what it's like to play a 45 or 50-second shift, I don't know any other way to do it.
The best was, I heard a story just recently. I knew about it. I'd known about it before, but when Mike Keeney was coaching the Rangers, he had Alexei Kovalov on the bench, and Kovalov was skating and shoot him off one time when he asked him, he's telling him to change on the fly, and he gave him the old, no, not yet. And then he proceeded to not let him off the ice for almost like 6 minutes after that. and Kovalov learned his lesson. He says, yeah, I learned the lesson just based off the fact that I was so exhausted and I just couldn't even function. I think, to Wally, to your point, I almost rather have my best players over taking all my ice time than my worst. So it is hard. It's just, sometimes it is a cultural thing. It's a way, and I think it's a matter of respect too, right? If your teammates respect each other, they're going to respect the time that they are allocated on the ice to perform, and they're going to give their other teammates an opportunity to jump in there as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like the saying, "You haven't taught until they've learned." I just know it's much easier said than done. It really would take. Or it does take considerable effort to teach the kids how to play the right way. There's one other thought I had, but it escapes me at the moment. It's all right.
By the way, you can find that shift out on YouTube. It's great. The NHL actually posted its whole 5-minute shift. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, and you may know this better than I, that he actually scored at the very end there to end the shift. Like, that's how he got off the ice. He finally scored the goal.
Yeah, the story when I was at an event where Keenan was telling the story, and it was great because you could even see Mike Keenan getting mad telling the story. Like, he was so mad that the player had success after all of that, right? And it's like, damn it, he didn't learn anything. He just said, "Oh, that's a great shift for me," So, but I think it's just funny at the highest levels. And it's funny, we interviewed Danny Briere last night for a podcast I do. And we referred to almost a guy like Kovalov about, it's so hard to tame these elite athletes because they want to be on the ice. They think they can go further than they can. They think they can take that ice time and use it to their advantage. And you as a coach is trying to manage that time and manage that player. But sometimes, you got to allow the player to find that and let their instincts kick in, especially when you have these elite athletes. So yeah, I would recommend the video. It's a great video to watch, because I think, I forget who the Ranger announcers were, but it's got to be, one of them's got to be Sam Rosen, right? But I would imagine they're having fun with it too, knowing how long he was on the ice, for those shifts.
Yeah, and well, you bring up a good point there of like players having success even though they're doing the wrong thing, and like how that kind of breeds bad habits of like, and trying to transfer and shift their focus to understanding like the result and the process are different, like, or how many coaches coach to the outcome, right? Like if someone misses the net, it goes down to the other end and the other team scores, versus maybe that was the right decision, rather than like coaching the process and the decision making rather than like the outcome.
Well-
That drives everyone wild. I know every coach is like, you're an idiot. Why are you doing it? Even though you keep having success, like it's not going to transfer to the next level, whatever it may be, and trying to change that mindset of going towards a process and not worrying about results, because if it's all about the results, we all know that eventually that catches up with you and the confidence goes and you're not able to perform at a higher level.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. The youth level. I mean, I'm always that I'm just like, I know you scored that goal, but it was just the wrong play. Like, and you've done it now 6 times because you've had success at a level that you're not going to find. I guess I can say that, but then the kid just keeps scoring. And like, well, you're not going to have success at the next level. Well, I just did. This is the next level, and I just did it again. So it's just very hard to say, okay, well, you know what? Do what you keep doing, but I'm just trying to help you see that there are other options out here. And I think it then refers back to, you can see your teammates, right? You see a kid score the quote unquote wrong way, and his teammates are kind of like rolling their eyes, but the kid's like, listen, I just scored, look at me. So it's so much, I realize, you're talking about all different levels, but at the youth level where I primarily work at, it's trying to get players to have the confidence to do these neat things, but also to teach them that it's working here. But, I do have a crystal ball, and I'm trying to help you to understand that if you don't evolve this skill, you're not going to be able to perform this later unless you can. Right.
Well,
So
there's like that misalignment, right? Of like just time frames. Like we're preparing the player for the next level. And a lot of times, especially like parents as well, are guilty of this of like, I just want to perform at this level really high, and having that disconnect of like, we're seeing the future where we want you to be successful where you're going. You want to have success now and feel good about it now. And that may come at the expense of future success, and like how to navigate that. It's always an interesting conversation and situation to handle.
I think I got to interject because I think you're giving in. You don't coach around the best player and allow that to happen. And the best team wins. Did they win a championship? Is it about him getting to the next level? Bullshit. It's about the team winning. And that's being the best they can be. They may not win that game. But as soon as you do that, you've lost the sense of team. You've lost the respect of half the players or maybe more. And that's where the best team wins. What championships have you won by double shifting? And if you have won, what have you won? A championship. What have you taught? A bad habit. And that kid's got to come out away from sport with a life lesson. It's a team sport. And however you deal with it is part of the art of coaching. And this is something that you should write down and mentor coaches to do. I picked it up at an Alberta zone camp competition I was mentoring, and the coach of the one team had the trainer, when it reached 40 seconds, start out loud, 40, 41, from the bench so the players could hear. And until the last player came off. Now, maybe they stayed out because they couldn't get off. Maybe they had an opportunity, it was close, but you've got to go from a minute and a half to a minute 15 or 2 minutes to a minute and a half. I think at younger ages, long shifts are okay. They don't have the anaerobic power and strength to play a great tempo pace game. So shift lengths to me at the elite level, they make a big difference, but not because of the outcome, because it teaches you about respect and trust in your teammates. So, okay, some different hands have gone up here, Michael, and then we'll go over to Tim.
Yeah, I just want to say one of the things I've seen, and I'd love to hear, even Peter chime in a little bit too on this, is because maybe it's just the region I'm in, but there's so many teams here that have these that are lopsided with the level of player that kids, and this is just anecdotal, this is what I'm seeing on the ground, right? That kids would rather be on a winning team with selfish players than be on a team of equal ice time and lose. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing for me to experience, because I'm like, if I'm not contributing, I want nothing to, even when I coach, if you invite me out to your practice and you don't let me contribute, I'm like, well, what the hell am I even doing here? Like, this is like, oh yeah, it's a great practice, but I had nothing to do with it. Like, I contributed nothing to the development of these kids. And it's such an odd thing that I see at that 12U, 10U level. And maybe it's because of the way the parents present it, but the kids are happy being on winning teams and are taking it because the team's winning and they're a part of that win, even though they didn't contribute to the win. I don't know. I just see that, and maybe because I'm not around, it's not a team of quote unquote elite athletes or high performing athletes. It's just a team of kids, and they just want to be around other. They just want to feel like they've won without the effort of actually contributing to the win. I don't know. That's just my anecdotal observation, I guess.
Tim?
Yeah, Wally, you had said that you used the phrase the younger levels, the shift length wasn't as important. I was just curious, what was the level? What was the age that you were considering like the younger level?
Well, I think it used to be U13. I look at the growth spurt, the maturation. There's a physiological maturity. Kids can play 3-minute shifts and not get tired at a certain age, but they're not playing dynamically and demandingly. So I don't know where I would start a 40-second shift. I know even with the national team, I sort of set a minute as the ceiling, and we didn't have to talk about it.
Yeah, from my experience, and I've been coaching youth hockey at the younger levels for 12 years now. At 10U and below, the shift length is not really a big deal, other than the fact you want to start to teach them the right way to play, so as they move up, it's less of a challenge for that next coach. And on the 12U team I'm associated with, none of the young men have gone through puberty yet, so their energy system is kind of like what you're describing. But I can, if we're playing against a team that changes on the fly, let's just describe it that way. So you would think their shift times are lower. They will genuinely beat us. Now that may be correlation, not causation, but in my experience, our goal, I would think, it would be for closer to that 50-second or a minute anyway. We're higher than that, so we'll one step at a time in the right direction. But that's been my experience.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's just like every coach has got their group, and you have to manage behaviors and mindsets and attitudes, and how you deal with shift length is your thing. If that coach got the team to buy in and change shorter, faster shifts, they're probably practicing shorter, faster. And it all correlates. You know, you're going to practice how you play. Maybe they had wonderful birth dates in terms of being 8 months more mature. Who knows? But there's so many factors here. But shift length, to me, I don't look at it for Yeah, I look at it for physiology first. I watched a Pee Wee Championship, that's U13, 5 years ago, and one team was double shifting the centers. And it was after the second period. I said to the person next to me, they're going to lose because in the third period they're dead. And that's where I'm talking. Hockey at that age level is an aerobic game, not an anaerobic game. The bantam level and midget levels, it becomes anaerobic. That's where there's that physiological maturation. But go ahead, Phil.
I guess that's me. The only point I wanted to kind of bring up and make is with everything that everyone's talking about as far as like shift lengths, getting players to buy in, how much, and I guess it's more, I guess it's maybe more of a rhetorical question, is how much time is spent on creating and developing trust between your players and the coaches? And that's at every level. I mean, any level I've coached, I mean, from youth hockey through to college. And that's been a priority for me, is finding ways to establish trust. And also was alluded to a little bit when we were talking about youth hockey, about, the time you don't have to spend with the kids. And that, I mean, when I coached youth hockey, I would give the kids little homework assignments, and they were nothing crazy, nothing too difficult, but I would ask them things like, I want you, next practice, everybody, tell me who your hero is in your life. Doesn't have to be hockey, just who's a hero for you. So I would get that back. Then I would do things like, what's your favorite food? Things like, what do you like to do when you're not playing hockey? This would be throughout the season. And from that, you get a sense of who these kids are, what's important to them, and then individually how you can push certain buttons, right? Because there's some kids who their hero is going to be, a Cale Makar or a Sidney Crosby, and they're going to be hockey driven, hockey athletic focus and everything they do. So that helps you figure out how to reach that boy or girl that's on your team in youth hockey. The same thing with the kid who says, I like to have fun. It's great to be with my friends. My parents are my heroes because they're always there to help me. What makes that kid tick. So creating that idea of what is the makeup of your team at any level, and then developing a measure of trust, that's where you get your buy-in. That's where, once the kids trust you, you tell them to do a 40-second shift, they'll do a 40-second shift because they will trust you. But you have to create that, and there's things you can do. And I always like to have them do a little homework assignment and write it, because honestly, kids don't write anymore. So it's probably a good life skill for them to learn too. But that's just kind of my 2 cents with that piece.
Phil, you mentioned that, and Carla taking over the Czech female team, there was a critical turning point. They lost to Germany, and she went into the room and she said, I'm trying to let you discover yourselves and your talents, and I don't believe you trust me. And over the course of the tournament, her whole approach was team building, those kind of questions, getting to know them in an authentic way. She sincerely knows them well, they began to appreciate her more. And Sammy, I don't know if you saw the post-game bronze medal celebration, but I put it on Instagram last night, and I called her right after that. But what she went through to win the trust of the girls is an amazing story, because she was dealing with behind the back things that, oh, I couldn't have tolerated. I would have walked in a flash. So, and you don't know those things are going on, but her ability to, at that critical moment, losing a game, to build trust. And you learn to handle things the right way. And she's got a good sense of that. They got clobbered by the US, and her captain yelled at her on the bench. And Carla, we'll deal with this later. The time isn't now. And after the game was over, they'd given up 2 goals in the first 2 shots, 5 goals in the first period. Bad start. And they never really recovered, but it was about the worst defeat you could expect, especially in the Olympics when they had a 2-all tie against them in 2 periods. I wondered what was going on. But after that game, that player that complained vocally apologized to her. She got reminded of the plan and believing in one another and whatnot. And she knew they were ready to win. So that how you interact, how you get to know them, and you might have some really difficult players that, of course, that comes from really difficult parents. They're highly motivated, and they get a sense of themselves that exceeds their abilities and exceeds the importance of a team. And I think that's exactly what you said, Phil, is push the right buttons, ask questions, get to know them. That's how you build trust. But as soon as you renege and allow that player to do what they want, you've lost the object of the game. It isn't winning that game. It's learning what it takes to be a better performer, and you're not going to win every game. You're going to learn from what you win. So what do you learn when you win games? When you double shift the best players? And that's something that very few people are happy with. And I think the mission statement exercise deals with that in spades. Not here for the outcome. You're here for the process and what it'll teach you. So thanks very much for that, Mr. Whitney. It was excellent. Sammy, any thoughts? Does this happen in the youth hockey girls game? Your kids are too young for it? Or do you see it?
I mean, I certainly see it throughout the game, but I am excited to tell the Sharks that Billy and I are officially U9 coaches. It starts in 2 weeks, house league. So very excited about that. I don't know that Billy's as excited, but he's forced into it. I think it'll be so great to have Billy as a sledge hockey player on the ice with these little girls. The life lessons that they're going to learn from him are going to be incredible. So, yeah, I'm just super pumped about all of the other aspects of hockey, because that's what my daughter loves. Nothing to do with on the game, the actual X's and O's. And we said to ourselves, we'll give her 1 more season because she really does hate it right now. So it's, as a parent, how much do you push and how much do you allow them to, gravitate towards what they love? And so we are allowing her to do that as well. And we're giving our passion and our joy 1 more season for her. And hopefully we can show her that hockey is a lifelong love, and that my dream is if she can play on a rec hockey team with me when she's 20 and I'm 60, that would be amazing. So she just has to know how to skate well enough to kind of get through. And if she doesn't want to join a team next year, that's okay. We can always go out and play shinny and do that stuff. But I'm excited to coach with my husband and to just take on that role. I've only ever been a skills coach up until now. So I've only done privates or hockey schools or things like that, or helped friends coach their teams in minor ways. So yeah, those U9 Hornets are going to have quite a season.
Well, we'll have to talk about it during some of the Shark sessions, see where it goes. But for those of you that don't know Sammi, I'm at some point, Sammi, I'm curious about you were growing up. Your parents raised you well and supported you in sports, but you were obviously a driven athlete and you wanted to be an Olympic swimmer to start with. Can you describe a little bit of your journey? Because not all kids are driven. Your parents weren't pushers, I believe.
Correct.
They let you choose your path.
You know, I think like a lot of women my age, we didn't grow up with parents as pushers because that just wasn't the norm or really thought of within women's sport. So I think on a certain level, we had that privilege that we were allowed to explore, you know, as long as we had parents that allowed us to play, we were allowed to explore various different avenues that we wanted to pursue without the perhaps the end goal of professional status. So there was never ever that pressure. You know, what's really interesting, and this could be a whole nother Sharks topic, but yeah, I grew up in a very loving family that were super supportive of whatever my brother and I did. And my brother ended up swimming down in Texas, NCAA. And so clearly they, you know, had kids that were very driven, but also allowed us to have some life balance as well. My husband didn't grow up in that kind of family, left home at 15. And I just feel like that's what is so amazing to me is what allows that athlete to succeed. And for him, it really came down to sport and coaching and being seen by the right person. It was just a grandmother of a child who had a disability that saw him on the street. He was skateboarding one day with crutches and asked him to come play with her son wheelchair basketball. And he like never once got driven by his parents to anything, and yet had this inner drive that allowed him to still supersede all of that because of a connection to a sport. And I just, that would be such an interesting conversation, because it's one thing for me to say, you know, I made it through, but we had the money to play sports, we had the opportunity, and I was, you know, lucky to have support within the household. But I'm always incredibly amazed by people that don't have that and still succeed, and how they manage. So that's for another day, because I think we could talk about that for hours. But
before we get over to Tim and Mr. Whitney, the Sammi ended up on a track and field scholarship, carded athlete for Canada at Berkeley University.
I went to Stanford. My brother went to Berkeley.
Pardon me. I think I've got that wrong all my life. But anyway.
I went. Those are massive rivals. So my brother ended up at optometric school after he went to Texas and played on the men's hockey team for Berkeley. And we actually played against each other. And he was terrible, a tier 4 hockey player. And he just got demolished by some of my teammates. And I just giggled because he did that to me my entire life.
But she ended up playing with the guys team and ended up coming to a national camp where I scouted her, and the rest speaks for itself. So that journey is, you never know with the kids. And I think they're going to choose what they want to do in their lives. Tim?
What I love about this group too is it doesn't matter what they do, but the influence. And I I am lucky enough to be inducted to the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame. So that's coming up in October, and trying to think of people to invite. You know, that's as you get older, you go through these things, and the coaches for me that were so impactful in my minor career, like in my youth career, actually were not hockey coaches. And in fact, I struggled to remember many of the hockey coaches' names. But it doesn't matter what you're coaching. What matters is what you're instilling in the athlete, and they're going to go on to become incredible people. It doesn't matter if they become hockey players. And I think that that's what I love about this group, is that's really at the base of everything that you guys do and try to instill in others.
Excellent, Sammy. Tim?
Yeah, I just I have to go, but I didn't want to leave silently. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let everybody on the call know. This weekly call is just fantastic for me. And Sammi Jo, I'm really anxious to hear your and Billy's your stories and experiences.
Tim, I'm gonna need all your help and all Michael's help, because I feel like you guys are right in it.
Yeah.
After I use up all my really good drills in the first 2 days, I'm really like, what?
Well, yeah, you might just throw the whole drill book away after the first game or whatever. But anyway, and Wally, just thank you for hosting this. It's I don't it's just fantastic that somebody like me can participate in a group like this, and I hope everybody has a good week.
See you, Tim.
See you, Tim. Take care. I'm just gonna, I see we have an Emily on. I wonder if, pretty sure that's a lady. Emily,
Hi.
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Introduce yourself, Emily, to the group.
I am sorry. I just was told about this about an hour ago, and I'm just on my way to the rink actually to train. So that's why my audio and video is off. I'm almost to the rink.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna see if I could maybe get a ride.
Somebody's got their phone speaker. Turn your speaker off. Okay. Go ahead, Emily.
Need to see
Well,
if better get that hockey today.
sorry.
Tom,
I
Tom,
just,
you have your speaker on.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I just had met a guy who connected me here. His name is Greg. So he connected me to this, but gosh, I don't know how to give you a rundown, but I'm currently in Columbus, Ohio. I just finished my last season with the Buckeyes, and before that, I was at Robert Morris in Pittsburgh. I work with the 14U girls program that we just started here. That's a AAA Blue Jackets team. So I work with them as an assistant coach. And I also work with a bunch of different youth teams in the area. And I'll probably be helping out with the Blue Jackets Hockey League, which is their 5 to 8 learn to play. So that's kind of the general rundown of how I got on this call, just connections through people that know you guys. So he just suggested I jump on. So in my extra 20 minutes, I jumped on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Emily, good to meet you, and hopefully we see more of you in the future.
Yeah, no, it's nice to meet you. I actually, unfortunately, will be at the rink in about 5 minutes, so I'm probably gonna have to jump off anyways. But I have it in my schedule for next week, so I'll adjust my training, so I can jump on next week if that works out well. So it was nice to kind of meet you all. I'll actually be in one place next week for the call, but I look forward to it, and it's good to hear just a little bit about all of you. It seems like this is a phenomenal call, so I'm excited.
Thanks very much, Emily.
You guys have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Craig, I wanted to just ask you one question. What's going on in your world right now, hockey world? What are you doing? Craig, you still there? Jordan Fenton, are you with us?
Jim?
Jordan, are you there? Go ahead.
Hi, Wally.
Jordan, what's up with you?
I've got 100 extra students starting our school year this year than we expected to have. So
Whoa.
it kind of was a little bit of a surprise to get going. We're in the process. We hired one teacher and in the process of hiring a second one. And hopefully there'll be another one before the end of the month. So there's all of that on the go, as well as our player evaluations and tryout camp started. What day is today? Thursday. So it started on Tuesday. So got that on the go as well. So it's been a busy startup, and but good. Busy but good. Probably no other way that I'd have it than running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but in many different directions. So it's been good. I've been just listening in while trying to do a couple of other things, and I loved your conversation about shift length. The one thing I would add with it is parallel that I've drawn for players is I said we play a sport that has shift on the fly. And I said, so there's no need to rest on the playing surface. We're not playing basketball. We're not playing soccer. So if you're resting out there, get your butt off. So the players usually can figure that piece out because they probably played one of those other two sports. And actually, interestingly enough, my previous school I was at is a huge basketball school, as you know, Wally. And I used to say to those old boy coaches that have been there forever that put the old in old school at times. I used to say to them, you know what would make your game so much different? Would be shift on the fly. I'd love to see shift on the fly for basketball and see what happened. You wouldn't have an NBA team that only needs to have 5 players, 6 players, one more player deep to be successful. You'd have to have a full bench like we need to have in hockey for the most part. So, but yeah, it's been a busy startup, Wally, and lots of fun. Looking forward to being at the rink again tonight. And then, but one more session tonight, a session tomorrow. Fitness testing on Saturday. Thankfully, it's only for the players and not the coaches. And then we're into red and white inter-squad games.
Jordan, you mentioned fitness testing. I have to share with you, I talked to Carla last night and I said, you know, what are you going to do moving forward if you stay with the program? And she said, fitness. She said they don't even do fitness testing with their national team. So, you know, that's shocking to me. And it's something I believe that will make a big difference in their performance. And I go back to Sammy back in the 1998 era when we were good hockey players, but we weren't athletes. And the training that we did to prepare for 2002 and that we've continued since then, that's why the US and Team Canada have really exceeded the other countries, is the investment of time, energy in training away from the rink and what they do and respecting nutrition and the habits to become an athlete. So they're athletes now that play hockey, which is really significant. So, Craig, I'm curious about you. If you're on, are you able to speak now? Okay. Well, listen, I've got us at 11 o'clock. I've got an opportunity with the coaches site and Mike Bonelli to spend some time on the mission statement exercise. So, Mike, I've been sending you different things that I've come up with since doing the exercise with Sarah, the head coach at UND. And she coaches a university team that went to the national championship. So the approach for her is a little bit different. It's literally talking about the outcomes and how do you accomplish that. And so if we think of what we've talked about here today, and if your goal is winning as a team, And how do you do that? You ask questions, and I put a middle column instead of two columns, one with values, one with outcomes. Middle column I call the process column. What do you have to do to win? And you write those things down specifically. That's what we came up with Sarah. And she discussed the value side of the importance of, shift length is going to be in the middle. It's part of the process. You have to teach it. You have to get it across. If you don't do that, winning's not going to be the result. You're going to have chaos. And if you don't develop your power play to the point where it suits your talents, and like Carla, allow them to play within that framework, it's up to you to see how well that power play does. So all of the process things, Jordan, during the year last year, I was really impressed that you experimented with stuff that Daryl Belfry did, because that's part of the process. In season, picking up stuff, experimenting with it at practice, and seeing it translate into the game. And then, in order to execute the process, it takes a lot of life skills, values, behaviors, respect, trust, teamwork, hard work. And so I've sort of changing the approach a little bit with high performance coaches to work the other way. And we seem to lose sight that the individual person, that motivation, that drive will come from within, but work ethic's important at anything. Respect is so important. Respecting your teammates, those are key things in the mission statement. So I'm looking forward to doing it with the coaches site, and curious about the audience and what kind of an approach to take, because Mike, are these people in the audience, they're able to handle this because they're like-minded already, so it's not a problem for them? Or are they mentoring like yourself, trying to work with people in associations?
Yeah, so the audience that we're seeing so far that have pre-registered already, like, so we sent out an email to any member of the coaches site, and they could pre-register for it, and when they register, they get your the one handout, and we'll review that today on what they get. So they'll get a handout prior to even coming on to the show. And then it seems to be, and the feedback that I've gotten is going to be, a lot of people like me that think they know what a mission statement is and want to have a mission statement, but just don't even know really what that entails and where to start. So I think this is going to be a great jump start for a lot of, fortunately or unfortunately, I think a lot of the people that will come on this call and if you're a member of the coaches site, you're probably already somewhat of a progressive coach and somebody that wants to learn and somebody that wants to develop. So it's a little bit of preaching to the choir, but I could almost guarantee you that most people that will be on this call will have never gone through this process of really evaluating how they're going to build a mission statement and then what does it really mean, and then how do you implement it. So I think today we'll hopefully flush out any of the the flow of it, but basically it's I think this is a great opportunity for what you do here on the Sharks and what you've done for a lot of people on this call and mentoring them and using these concepts and understanding the values of a written, thought out mission statement. This will just help, if it comes out to be just a coach connecting with their parents and coming up with some common goals, I think that will be a home run.
Listen, Tim has left the call, but something communication with players. Mike, I had thought of Power Play and that app that allows for communication with players and coaches, and it's privy only to the coach, the parents, the head coach, and the players. But I feel that has tremendous potential in building trust and relationships and respect for those three parties. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Power Play, Michael, but I've done the mission statement with them, and it's a group out of Vancouver, I think, that do it. And the app is on your phone, and it's on the phone of the players and the parents, and it's something like $29 a player, and that's a little bit of an investment. But what it does is the coach in the app, and Mike, if you're not familiar with it, I think it's something that you should have a look at and find out a bit more about, because the idea of communication with the coach and the parent and the player and the values side of what you're doing and the ability to measure improvement. And it really is something that complements the mission statement exercise. It's a tool. Everybody's into technology, and the phone is the instrument that gives you the opportunity to provide immediate, feedback sooner than later, and to share it and two-way communicate with people on it. So have you found out anything about that group, Michael? Have you had anything to do with them at all?
Yeah, I work with them exclusively. They're actually sponsoring your presentation, so we're in good hands.
All right.
They're footing the bill. So I think it's a great, like I said, it's a great program. We've been I've been using them for 4 years now. I use them for lacrosse and hockey, and it's really been a great for somebody like me who has young kids in school. There's a program called Class Dojo that the teachers use down here in the U.S. That's almost like a constant contact of, I think they use it too much. I think it's like, oh, your son stood in line very well today at recess. I'm like, are you sitting there with this iPad and telling me every moment that the kid's doing the right thing? But I'm not a fan of that. But what Power Player does allow you to do does open up that line of communication. And I use it because I can sit at home and doing other work, and I can pull up my roster, and I can, I can send out a comment or two to each player at least once a week, and they can track that and kind of see, where my, what my feeling is of them in that time frame of the season. And then I can always refer back to it with the kid, with the player and the parent, and say, well, these are kind of some trends that we're seeing. And have you noticed that I've commented how, your son, seems to be late for practice every week, and they're not engaged, and they're disrupting the group. Like, as you see those patterns, it just helps you have the conversations back and forth. And I think what's nice about it, you can almost get a little bit of, keyboard, muscle, where you don't mind saying something that might be a little rough, because you're not going to have that instant confrontation. And I don't know. I like that piece of it. There are other pieces that open up a can of worms, because sometimes in these apps you start grading kids, and once kids start comparing each other to each other, and parents start comparing, like, well, what did you tell Johnny's parents? And that's what's nice about the app, is only the coach and the parents see the comment, not the whole team doesn't see your comment. And that's but there is a feature where you could send a whole message out to the whole team, like, hey, we really had a great day yesterday, keep up the good work, I appreciate your effort, blah blah blah. Just keeps that constant flow of communication with the parent and the player.
And you've shared on that video of drills or game clips.
So I use it for everything. I send out my weekly, like, daily video game clips. If I know Greg's on the call, I send out a lot of his stuff. I copy and paste it and send it out, and I always give him credit. But anybody, any clips I can find, again, I'm in an industry, right? I'm in a position where I'm just inundated with all of this information. It's almost a fire hose of of getting to be around really great coaches and great mentors and great leaders. And, you know, most of the parents I work with and their players don't, you know, they don't have time to do what I do. They're working, you know, they have real jobs. So it just gives me the opportunity to share a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing and the trends and what the experts are saying. And then it helps me share that with them to, you know, selfishly continue to help reiterate my message, because I'm connecting with the best people in the game.
Okay, thanks very much. And
so I'm going to jump off too, Wally, but I'm just ping me on Skype again when you're available.
okay,
I think 11 a.m. your time, correct?
Yep, really good. Looking
thanks,
forward
guys.
to it. Take
Great.
care.
Great discussion as usual.
I was going to talk a bit about, I think it's Peter or Phil Whitney. I've got to get it right. My memory's toying with me here. But I really am impressed when he speaks, because he seems to articulate things that get to the point of the matters we're often discussing here really well. And I've got a couple more edits to do before I want to share what he says as a whole. So I don't know if Greg is on, but I had a question for Greg that would really help me connect the dots if he's there. Greg, are you available? Okay, well, for Tom and Hal, Craig his stuff is cutting edge X's and O's. And it's so good that I believe that coaches can use it to benefit their players and their teams immensely. He provides video, he provides articles, and it's written in a way that's clear, succinct, and exciting. And I think it's a tremendous tool. But I'm always curious about the line between how do you get the X's and O's actually across so they happen on the ice? Getting them to do what you want. That's what we're frustrated with, I think, as coaches, is you practice this, you practice that. How do you get them to do what you want? So, Tom, I don't know if your speakers, if you can put it on, I got a question for you. No, he appears to be might be on, but out. Hal, how are you doing, buddy? You hanging in there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, as coaches, we like to find solutions to what we see as problems.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's certain problems we can't fix. And we have to recognize limitations of what players are willing and are capable of doing. And I think I think that it's important for coaches to step back a little bit sometimes and take a look at what you really have, you know, what your group has in terms of competitive capabilities versus wherever you're playing. Here comes Tom, he's back. And I have a hard time looking at video of really good players or good teams and then trying to use it as a teaching tool very much with younger players that don't have the skill sets. And the last couple of years coaching the girls, and we used an app, and I would send them video clips, I would send them articles and stuff. Guess what? They don't look at them very often. And so I think that's the biggest challenge is breaking through that. into that space where you can get some of their attention long enough for them to see something that you think is important. And you can't send a lot of stuff because then they really tune you out. So I don't know. That's what makes coaching so interesting, is that there's we all have our 20 favorite drills. We all have our strategies for coaching teams or managing them. And I think it's interesting that, that there's a huge difference between being a head coach and an assistant coach. And a lot of assistant coaches don't get it. They don't understand what head coaches have to do and how they do it. So anyways, that's my time filler. Now you can talk to Tom. He's back.
Tom?
I drove my son to the train to go to work. So I had my phone, but I couldn't turn the speaker on. But
So Tom, have you turned up any hockey things to do this coming down the road?
No, I said to my wife yesterday, it was the first time since I was 5 years old that I haven't had anything to do in September. Always going to school or coaching a team or, this and that, or working. So I'm on the ice in an hour. I may be the only guy on the ice because everybody's playing now, but I need to practice. I'm still waiting for that. The guy from Toronto, when I was 16, he said he'd keep an eye on me, and I never got the call.
Well, that's good. You're still.
Let me ask you guys a question. I think we talked about, I don't know if I read about this. So I have to scout for trail. And there's the North American Hockey League showcases coming up, and not this weekend, the following weekend. It's like, all the teams are going to be here playing, and of course they're bringing big rosters because they haven't cut, they're still carrying like 30 kids. And so the head of scouting or whatever up there in trail, and I mean, these are, I mean, they're playing at the super rink in Blaine, which has, I don't know, 8 rinks, and there's games going on all over the place, but trying to scout and pick out players to put on our scouting list. I don't know, Wally, did I send you that scouting sheet from the San Jose Sharks that I have? I'm about to send it up to Trail. I could send that to you. I'm just curious about going and watching games and how you kind of go about it, especially if you've never seen the team play before.
Well, I'll give you my take on it. Hell, I was the head scout for Hockey Canada's female program for 8 years.
Yeah.
And we created across the country, we were on the same page in terms of what we were evaluating and the discussions we had. We would mull over 8 traits, looking at skating and game skating, strength on skates, speed, acceleration, ability to use skating to an advantage, all kinds of things, that sort of a checklist of qualities that went into rating that.
Yep.
We have a national team, an under 22 development team, and an under 18 team. So as a group of scouts, we had to evaluate, and we used a scale of 1 to 5. And
Yeah.
3 out of 5 was a senior average for any one of those traits. So you might, whatever traits you take, and I recommend there 3 traits: skill, hockey sense, and intangibles. And circle intangibles because they'll be the most important. Now
That's
you-
body language and those kinds of things.
coachability, determination,
Yeah.
attitude, work ethic, adaptability.
Mhm.
There are so many words that go into the intangible qualities of character and personality and not losing it and emotional control and all those things that are most important in the selection process. So you pick good kids first.
Yep. Yep.
And the average score, let's just say your team should be 3 out of 5. Now,
Okay.
a realistic prospect might be 2 out of 5 on a trait. So some of your, and you might have a no way score as a 1 out of 5. But by the time you score them by tenths, rate them and discuss them as a group by tenths, and you have to agree the 3 traits or the 8, however many you do, it takes time.
Yeah.
But when you do it and put it into a Excel program and collate it, you get a ranking,
Yeah.
a blended ranking of the traits. Now, a separate evaluation is a game ranking. Rank your top 6 defensemen. We have a trait rankings and game rankings. And when you're going to pick the team, the trait ranking sort of tells you what they have to get better at, that they scored low in a trait, and it might be hockey sense, defensive hockey sense versus offensive hockey sense. Well, there are skills in there that can be taught. So there's a personal improvement plan that can be provided, which will give your organization credibility in terms of following up with those players.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody should get a personal improvement plan based on the traits. Or at least the coaches should be aware of it in teams they go to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you average the game ratings with the trait ratings with our national team, that was how we picked the team. The head coaches weren't a part of the formula, but they had to do the process. They were busy running the ice times. They were busy on the bench during scouts evaluating. But the coaches had to do the exercise for the players, and it might be the top 40. But it's a good exercise to do with your team last year. Have them evaluate the team last year on the traits as a staff, and then talk about them as a staff. So you're developing as a coach, you're becoming much more aware, broader awareness of what to look for. And the important part is, can you develop those things? Or are you just saying, no, they're limited, they're not going to get better at this. What can we do? So the idea at that competitive level is to transmit belief and work on their strengths. Motivate them through their strengths that will empower them to do things on their own to get better.
Right.
And so that's the way I've approached scouting. And I think the ranking of traits, and if you only take 3 general traits and talk about them, it's good for the scouting staff to be better scouts.
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly give you, the first trait was individual skills. And the second trait was offensive team play. In other words, the application of those skills, the decision making, and the teamwork with the puck. The third one was defensive team play. And the fourth one was physicality. So that related to strength, fitness. Like you can be small but strong on your skates and first to the puck, and you can still score high in physicality, even though you're
Not big. Yeah.
it overrides your physicality, like Johnny Goodrow.
Yeah.
So there are a couple more traits leading into the other one, but they just were neat to score. If to make the subjective process more objective.
I don't know if you can, I don't know, it looks like Tom jumped off. I don't know if you can see this. There it is.
Yeah.
So this is from the Sharks from a bunch of years ago.
Yeah.
You can see it's pretty, I mean, there's like 30 different categories.
Yeah.
At the end of pro rating, game rating, first shot, second shot, goalie control, focus, play. You know, the thing that I always pointed out to people that there's nothing there about how many goals they scored. That's what everybody focuses on. This guy scored all these goals, and there's a lot of those intangibles are in here. There's face-offs, head manning the puck, dig the puck out. So that's a lot of the stuff you're talking about. And then comments, and then this would be for 1, 2, 3, 4. Skills and game ratings: poor, little, talent, below average, above average, good, very good, exceptional, and then pro rating after that. So I'm going to share this with the guys up at Trail, but I like what you're saying there. My challenge is I'm going to go to the rink and I'm going to watch a couple periods of this game and a couple periods of that game, and I'm going to do that for 8 hours a day for a hat and jacket.
Yeah.
But and they're looking for Canadians in certain birth years because they can't, BCHL can only have 6 Americans on the team.
Okay.
And so from our perspective here, me and my friend that is helping me with this, it's kind of how much effort you're going to make, going to put into this. And then they've gotten all excited about a kid here that is projected to be a very high draft pick in 2 years. And he's already committed to the Sioux City Musketeer, or I don't know, one of the USHL teams. He's committed to the Gophers.
Yeah.
And it reminds me that it's so easy to see the great ones.
Oh yeah.
It's the ones that aren't, that are still developing and are on their way. Those are the ones that are harder to smoke out. So, anyways,
when Tom and I taught phys ed, the simplest scale is 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The ones are your, like, you know who they are. They're the best ones.
Yeah.
And the bottom ones, they stand.
Mm-hmm.
And you can leave the names in those 3 columns without evaluating.
Right.
And the middle ones is the ones you'll move up or you'll move down.
Right. Well, I've done it for years, with closed groups like a Bantam group or a high school team, a group of kids, but not in an event where there's, let me see, 700 or 800 players in the course of 5 days. So, and they don't put the rosters out They haven't yet because they're not actually formally rostered there.
Yeah.
We'll see when I get there what kind of lineup they got. I got to be somewhat strategic about it, and the good, I had to buy a scout pass for $150, which I thought was a little excessive. You'd think they'd want you there, but we get free food, so that sealed the deal right there. They got free food for us, so you don't leave the building. Well, I might, I'm going to end up coaching something here, so I want to use your what do you call it? The mission statement.
Yeah.
So I might, you and I did it, and I might want to circle back with you on it, and just so I can, I want to make sure I use it correctly. But I got to figure out where I'm coaching first, and
yeah,
it won't start for a while. If it's high school, it won't start till the middle of November. And if it's not a head coaching job, I probably won't be able to use the mission statement. But if I have a head job, and it might be U15 girls,
yeah,
it might be a pretty useful tool for the parents for sure, and the girls.
If you do the head job, you can ask this question on to anybody trying out, and you can send an email out to have them answer this question.
Yeah.
When you do an email to the parents, do it to the player. And there's one question that is the first part of the exercise.
Yep.
What do you want? List 3 things you would like to accomplish this season.
Yep.
Now you can elaborate on it verbally if you're doing a group presentation, what would you like to get better at? What would you like to experience that you didn't experience before?
Yeah.
Questions that expand accomplishes sort of a outcome thing.
Right.
But the idea of learning, teamwork, getting along with one another, fun.
Yep.
So what do you want to accomplish? And I might put this season or accomplish, experience, do differently in this season. Then they write down 3 things. That's pivotal. Now, the parents have to write down what they would like their child to get out of the season and themselves.
Yep.
And that immediately gets them to think about why they're playing.
Yeah.
Get to know why they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Parents get to know why they're playing, why the kids want.
Yeah.
And you can send back the responses.
Yeah.
And what I would do from just talking to you right now is when you get the responses back, I would create 3 columns.
Yeah.
The value/life skills column, process column, and an outcome column. And put the phrases or the words into those columns. So the process column is how you're going to accomplish the outcomes they want.
That's awesome.
And it works. In other words, they end up writing a mission statement from the life skills side, because to get better at anything, you have to work hard, you have to listen, you pay attention, you got to show respect. Those life skills are going to determine that they're part of the intangible qualities that you want to learn from playing a sport.
Right. Do you do this with the parents and the kids all in the room, or do you separate them?
I've done it in a room, and I'm suggesting that if you do take the job on and you have the email contacts for the parents and the kids,
Yeah,
send them to both of them at once, the questionnaire,
yeah,
to get back, and then you collate it.
I gotcha. Yeah,
And
that's a
then
good idea.
when you do the group session, you draw an, the process should be blank.
Yeah,
So you draw an arrow through the middle pointing to the outcomes.
yeah,
And that's what you have to do. And they have to understand it's a process
right.
to accomplish what they want. And you have to do the exercise for yourself with your staff. All your sporting teams could do this, but it
Sure.
gets everybody appreciating the nature of what they're doing it
Yep.
for, how to accomplish
What they're trying, yeah,
how to be the
yeah,
best.
what the process is. Yeah. Oh,
No,
geez, I got another.
I start with a funny thing, and I have you draw a tree to begin with.
I remember. Well, we did that.
Yeah. And
Yep.
what's missing is the roots.
Yeah,
The roots are the values, life skills side. If you have them, if you focus on coaching the right way, not shortening the bench to win,
Yep.
managing the bench to build belief and transmit belief, allow all players an opportunity, and it's not equal, it's earned opportunity. Like if they're putting in the effort, they should play. If they're not putting in the effort, regardless of how good they are, it should be addressed before
Yeah.
this time or a conversation is had.
In a back.
Hey,
He's
Greg.
back.
It's lunchtime
back,
around here,
Greg.
okay?
Well, there's a rule. There's no eating on this call.
No, don't worry. I'm gonna shut the recording off here now. And Craig,